into the future where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So, we're at an interesting place in our country's history where we're desensitized to the idea of shootings to the point where someone opening fire at an office but only injuring 3 people seems like good news. If you were like me when you heard about the active shooter at YouTube's offices, you went, oh no. And then you heard, oh, only 3 people got injured. Still an unbelievably, insanely traumatic thing, but because the death count has been so high of late, I guess there is a sense of relief. And the other thing is, the only person that passed away was the shooter. There was a shooting at YouTube's headquarters in San Bruno, California yesterday afternoon. A woman, which is rare in these cases, but a woman shot 3 people, a 27-year-old woman, a 32-year-old woman, and a 36-year-old man. All of them were taken to the hospital. All of them are expected to survive. The woman used a handgun, and the only death was the shooter. She shot herself. The police released a statement saying that the shooting was personal and not terrorism, but they didn't elaborate. I think what we know now, though, is that she was a disgruntled YouTube user. She was like a content creator for YouTube that was upset that her views had been throttled down. This is what we know about her. Her name's Nazim Agdam. She lived in Southern California somewhere. She had a pretty big presence on YouTube. I'm sure there's folks going, oh my gosh, I've been watching her videos for years. Wow, that's insane. And it is insane. Let's just be totally crystal clear about this. Travis, what is someone when they kill another person?
A murderer.
And what is a murderer?
Murderers are crazy.
Crazy. They're crazy. They're insane. We've talked about this a little bit on the show in the past, but if you are not in a self-defense situation, or if you're not a soldier at war and you take someone else's life, you're a crazy person. You're absolutely insane. And here's the deal. There's another layer, and there's an interesting implication to this situation. And obviously, we can't live our lives, and folks like YouTube can't live their lives based on the act of an insane person. And she's clearly insane, but she did say YouTube discriminated and filtered her content. Have a listen to this.
Discriminated and filtered on YouTube, and I'm not the only one. So recently, they also attacked my Persian channel, Nassim Sabs. And if you go and check my videos, you see that my new videos hardly get views, and my old videos that used to get many views stopped getting views. So this is because I'm being filtered.
So she's angry. She's angry because she used to have this robust presence on YouTube, and then her views were throttled down. Now, here's what's interesting. And by the way, in this online rant, she complained that YouTube censored her content by imposing an age restriction on one of her workout videos because they were too racy. She said that the company didn't do the same thing for people like Miley Cyrus and Nicki Minaj, whose videos she said are inappropriate for children. And she also said there's no equal growth opportunity on YouTube. She said, be aware there's no free speech in the real world, and you will be suppressed for telling the truth that is not supported by the system. Make the lie big, make it simple, keep saying it, and eventually they believe it. That's a quote from Adolf Hitler, which she applied to YouTube. Now, what's, I think, the interesting precedent that's been set here, and again, you cannot live your life and choose your actions of how you're going to run your business based on the act of an insane person. And anybody that takes somebody else's life, as we've established already, is insane. But the digital world, e-commerce, whatever you want to call it, was like the Wild West for a long time. This woman was clearly out of her mind, but what YouTube did was establish a means of making money. Facebook has done the same thing in a different sort of way, but what YouTube did was establish a means of making money. What they did was they say, hey, be a content creator. get a share of the advertising dollars that you bring in based on the views on your videos. And they established a working business model. And there were people that made, and who knows how well her videos were doing, but it sounds like she had a pretty decent presence and she was probably making some cash off of it. We don't know if she was a full-time YouTuber, but there's certainly plenty of those out there. What YouTube did was encourage people to basically build their house on rented land. Hey, we're going to provide this platform, and here's how you're going to make money off of it. And where the trouble starts to arise is when they go, all that money that you've been making off of your YouTube videos, that's about to go away, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Let's start the show. Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So what we know about the YouTube shooter was that she was a YouTuber. She was a content creator. She built her house on rented land. In that, YouTube came along and said, hey, people that upload content to YouTube, we're going to share a teeny tiny fraction of the ad revenue with you when you create this content. It's an interesting business model. And do you have a YouTube channel, Travis?
I had one from probably 2005, before commercials ever existed on YouTube. I think before YouTube was ever owned by Google. And right. I don't know that I've uploaded a video. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I don't know. I hate YouTube so much, possibly more than Facebook. So I don't maintain a YouTube channel, thank God. But I think I have some videos on YouTube. Yeah.
Because it's our job as broadcasters. I have a couple of YouTube channels, and I think I've got, 8 million views or something like that. Nothing that's changing the world, but certainly nothing to sneeze at. And I've never tried that thing where I'm monetizing it. I've never done that. But I do know it's, when I first got into it, because look, if you're like me, you have this dream of not really working for other people. I love all my bosses. I've got 8 of them because of all the freaking stations I'm on, and every last one of them is just an absolute treat to deal with. But I don't want a boss. And when I found out about YouTube, I was like, oh man, there might be a way to just sort of bail on the whole sort of broadcast infrastructure and just exist off the grid doing my own thing. Nobody tells me what to do. Nobody tells me what to say. I just kind of create content and make a living off of that. And so when I started poking around on YouTube going, all right, I should probably have a channel, I was shocked how arbitrary some of these numbers seem to be. I uploaded a piece of content that is very similar to this other one in a timely manner, and all it checked all the YouTube boxes. You've got to do uploads on a regular basis. Timing is key. All this sort of stuff. And I was like, this one has millions of views. This one has a couple hundred views. Boy, if my livelihood depended on this, I would never, ever let go of the gnawing, clawing feeling in my stomach. So I was like, I don't think being a professional YouTuber is for me. But it was an interesting look, if only a very quick one, at what it must be like to be a YouTuber. Someone who makes their money off of this. Somebody, and there's people that have made fantastic amounts of money, like people that are getting rich off of tutorial videos on how to tie a tie. It's crazy. It's a stream of revenue that no one ever would have imagined existed years and years ago. And now it's something that people are buying massive homes with. But it is owned by someone else. It's that idea. We've said it before, say it again. It's the idea of building your house on rented land. Well, the owner of that land can be like, sorry, we're bulldozing everything on it. But I created it. Okay, well, just move it somewhere else because we're doing something else with it. And this woman, like I said, clearly out of her mind. But what YouTube did was establish a means of making money, be a content creator, get a share of the advertising dollars. They established a working business model, and then they changed it. without any warning. Like, if you watch a lot of YouTube videos, maybe you've seen this in the past, but there was a period a couple months ago where they're all like, I'm going to have to shut down my channel. I'm going to have to sell my house. If you want to make a donation to my Patreon page, it's how I'm feeding my kids at the moment. Like, it's just, it's weird because, you know, they establish a way of doing business and say everything's going to be hunky dory. And then they change it and they change people's abilities to make money. They encourage people to invest everything into creating content that's going to move their platform forward. And then they change the rules. So all of a sudden, those people are left out in the cold, unable to find two nickels to rub together. Now, this is America. This is a free market economy. They own it. They can do whatever the hell they want with it. And in the same way, Facebook did it. For years, there were people that based their entire businesses off of Facebook. Facebook was used to shuttle clicks off to a website where they were selling something, or shuttle clicks off to a website where the more visitors they got, the more they got to charge for their banner ads. And Facebook did the same sort of thing. They went, that was nice. Now you're going to have to pay for it. You've built these businesses over years, and now you're going to have to, we're going to throttle your reach right down. I don't have that big of a Facebook page, but it's not insubstantial. Like, I don't know, there's 25,000 people that have quote unquote liked me. And again, it makes me extraordinarily happy that I'm not basing large portions of my income on a business model established on Facebook, because sometimes I'll post something and it'll go freaking nuts, go around the world 3 times. Sometimes I'll post something and 2 of those 20,000 people will see it. So it's this weird thing. It's this weird thing that has become an interesting problem that has to be addressed in the digital age. You can't encourage people to set up a business based on something and then take it away from them and not expect some sort of pushback. Now, obviously, this one was clearly out of their mind. But up until recently, the digital world, Facebook, YouTube, all of the above, was like the Wild West. There's gold in them there hills. Well, now people know where the gold is. And for them to move the goalposts after they've encouraged people to set up businesses completely dependent on their platform, you do that, and there's going to be people that push back.
None higher, suckers in the age, call me sire. Think you gotta be the one to take me down and guess again, no. Whoa. Money making, skills on the mic, keep me paid every day, and for part of the battle, just bow down, better act like you know. Whoa.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah, give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on.
So, if you look at the situation with the YouTube shooter, obviously they were criminally insane, like out of their mind crazy, as we've discussed in the past, as we've discussed today on the show. If you take somebody else's life and you're not in a self-defense situation and you're not a soldier at war, then you have to be out of your mind crazy. But it is an interesting indicator of what happens when you threaten somebody's way of life and somebody's livelihood in the digital era. But if someone comes along and says to you, you know that thing that you base your whole life on, that allows you to make money, that allows you to keep a roof over your head, that allows you to feed you and your family and your kids, and is going to allow you to send your kids to college, I'm going to take that from you. You would fight to keep it, right? Of course you would. Wouldn't you, Travis?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at workplace violence when people get fired from their job. All people, in theory, want to do is make a living, but you try and take their job away from them, and they tend to get a little fussy about it.
Yeah, no, it's true. Which is why I think it's interesting to delve a little bit into this one. Would you dump your partner for a raise, Travis? If you had a significant other, would you dump them for more money?
How much more money? Well,
I guess that would be.
I think I just answered the question. Yes. Yeah, I would.
Right. So, yeah, you have a price. You can be bought. Your relationship has a price and it can be bought. Also, would you give up your right to vote for more money?
That's an interesting one.
All right, ponder it. Don't give me an answer now. We'll discuss this a little bit later on in the show. But apparently a shockingly high number of folks would consider dumping their partner and giving up their right to vote in order to have more of that sweet, sweet do-re-mi rolling around in their bank account. Do you think that we're desperate at the moment? Do you think that we as a country are financially desperate? Do you think that we are still kind of shaken by the recession? Do you think that there's so many people that will tell you if the average American had an extra zero at the end of the number in their checking account, we would have been looking at a very, very different election. Who knows who would have wound up getting elected? Who knows who would have wound up, making it past the primaries? But do you think that we as a country are operating from a position of financial fear at the moment, Travis?
I kind of don't. You have to ask yourself, if you add an extra zero.
Bear in mind, you're a lousy person to ask because you're one of the bravest people in the world when it comes to, F it. I'm just going to go be an air traffic controller. I'm going to go be an able seaman on a tugboat. I'm going to go be a cop dispatcher. To you, the world is a place of possibility where the next profession that will pay you to do the things that you want to do is just a hop, skip, and a jump away right around the corner. You look at the world differently than the vast majority of people, Travis. You got to understand this.
No, I do. But I think about the majority of people that I know, and the majority of people that I know or that I deal with on a regular basis don't exactly have a ton of money stored away. So it kind of makes me think that even if they did have an extra zero at the end of their bank account, or even if they did have an extra zero at the end of their paycheck, would things be any different? And I just don't know that it would. And I don't know what causes people to be that way. But it's funny because I know of people who, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to insinuate that I'm judging anybody, but I know of people who have GoFundMe pages up for either medical problems or for something, who have PlayStations, who have flat panel TVs, who have iPhones, who would rather ask other people for money than to sell the things that they have. So, it's a lifestyle question.
But do you think here's another interesting wrinkle. Do you think they actually own these things? Do they own the phone, or is it, on a payment plan? Do they own the television, or is it on a payment plan? Do you think, but I totally get your point. Yeah. But do you think there's a lot of people that have a lot, don't own anything?
Very true. Very true. I mean, even when it comes to homes and cars, you're right. You hit the nail on the head. But it's an interesting question. If you have these things and you have the ability to sell them to have liquid assets, or, to be able to pay for things as opposed to asking somebody else for something, why wouldn't you do that? And I don't know the answer to that, but I think the world.
By the way, if you have a GoFundMe page to pay for something that is a big deal in your life, we're not necessarily talking about you. Travis knows some very specific folks that have an ability to do more for themselves than they are doing, that are basically resorting to online panhandling. I got to tell you, man, you know who does that? And it really irritates me.
Who's that?
Bands. Because when I'm going to sound like an old cranky man at this point, which I suppose is what I'm becoming. But when I was a kid and I was in a band, you know what we did? We got into a van. The van was a piece of crap. We hucked it out across the country. We played shows. We sold demos. We sold T-shirts. And what we did was we became really, really good live, so that no matter where we went, the next time we came back, there was going to be more people there. And eventually, it didn't take that long. I was in a fortunate circumstance, and, saying be very good live is not necessarily an easy thing. Some bands fall into that immediately. Other bands take years to find their groove. But there are so many bands now that panhandle online, that have sort of like GoFundMe or Patreon. There's all sorts of ways of asking people for money online. And there's so many bands that say, like, if you pledge this much, we'll write you a song. You know, we need to buy a van and we need to buy all this stuff. And like, no, you're cheating yourself out of the experience of fighting for your freaking music. Don't beg people. Don't ask for donations. And look, I understand it's a very, very different day and age where nobody's spending $16 on a compact disc anymore. But I find at that independent level, if you are a band and you're selling CDs, people will buy them. They will buy them because they're there, they're at the show, they want to buy something, that maybe you can sign. Like, you know, I think that's one of the very few places where people are actually still willing to pay for music at bands' shows. But it drives me nuts when I get all these requests from bands saying, "Look, could you share a link to our page so that we can afford to buy a Sprinter van and go on tour?" You're cheating yourself out of. It's like that old expression. What would make you feel better, Travis? Having $1 million or the realization you were the type of person that managed to create $1 million in your life? Either way, you still have the $1 million. Would you rather poof, have it appear, or would you rather go, man, I made that happen?
In the 1960s and 1970s, I would say making it happen. In 2018, I would say having the $1 million. I don't care how it gets there. As long as I have it, I'm equally happy.
Well, see, there you go. I think that's the thing. You know, like, oh gosh, this is really going to sound esoteric and out there. But like, if you're just focused on getting the $1 million, you're missing out on a whole lot of the fun. You know what I mean? Like, going out and fighting for your music, going out and getting a bunch of people to be into what the hell it is you're doing is an intrinsically satisfying thing. There is nothing better than starting to play to a room full of people and have them all be completely distracted, annoyed that you're busting into their conversation. And then by the second or third song, everyone's gravitated to the front of the stage and they're losing their minds to something that you have taken it upon yourself to create and have worked long and hard on. And that's like, that level of gratification is great. And it's almost a little bit better than walking into a situation where everybody's stoked to see you. And this is obviously a metaphor for many different things in life, but yeah, the idea of people panhandling online for tour support, like when you're an independent band, like I get it, I do, but at the same time, I'm like, there's so much less substance to you as a person now, is what I feel when I see that.
It's funny because like, and I'm sitting here as you're talking about it, trying to think of where I even went off on this, like in the conversation. But I think the whole concept that I was trying to hit on, and you're right, I wasn't trying to shame anyone who has a GoFundMe, but I think the whole idea that I was trying to get at is it's a different world than it used to be, you know, and I don't know that even with more money, would people live any different, or would they still live barely above their means with just more stuff? And I don't know. I think people are at that point where it's like, they don't feel like, oh, I need to have an emergency fund or a family that I can fall back on. You know, it's not that anymore. Now it's, well, you know, there's a whole welfare system that'll hold me up if I do fall. So I don't know that having more money would fix the problem. I think part of it may be a mentality thing. I think we may have evolved to a point that we're changed people, and that even if you do have more money, that you wouldn't have any more money in your bank account. You would just have more stuff and you would be just as broke. But again, I don't know that I'm right.
Well, what's interesting is I think what you're talking about is the middle class, because I think the middle class is the disappearing middle class. They are the folks that more often than not, we are the folks that more often than not wind up getting the short, unpleasant end of the stick. And if you're a gazillionaire, well, you know, you're going to have, you lose one gazillion, you're going to have a second gazillion, you'll be just fine. If you're a person that has allowed themselves to sort of like live off of a system, like I don't want to get into the semantics of people getting offended because they've taken benefits and things of that nature. I'm not pointing a broad stroke finger at everybody that has ever received any kind of public assistance, but folks that are loaded and, you know, probably did plenty to get loaded, and that's cool, don't have that clawing fear in the pit of their stomach. folks that sort of have grown accustomed to relying on government assistance, handouts, Patreon pages. Well, now Patreon's a little different. Sorry. If there's a Patreon user out there that wants to correct me on what that's all about, I understand it's different. Different than, say, a GoFundMe or something like that. But it's the folks that are sort of like stuck in the middle, busting their hump going, I'm just making it. And if the rug gets pulled out from underneath me, it all falls down. My home, my car, my means of getting to work, my family, my wife, my kids, my husband, my son, my daughter, all of this stuff, my ability to feed my dog, that all goes away. And by the way, that's a GoFundMe that I always give to. Whenever anybody's getting surgery or some sort of medical procedure for their dog, I wind up donating to a lot of different things. And whenever somebody is asking for money to help their family pet, I can't help myself. I want to be like, well, why do you have a pet if you can't afford to look after a pet? And then I'm like, you know what? This pet probably would have been euthanized if it was adopted or whatever. So like I have a teeny tiny amount of internal struggle with that stuff. And then I always wind up donating money to GoFundMe pages for people that are looking for some sort of treatment for their dog or for animal shelters or things of that nature. Dogs and kids, they can't help themselves. Well, animals and kids, they can't help themselves the way that you and I can. How on earth did we get on this? And what were we talking about before? How America is scared because they're running out of money? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, and I blame myself for that, and I apologize. It wasn't my intent to stray.
No, it's very interesting stuff. I think, and you know what? It just further illustrates the point that the situation that happened at the YouTube headquarters was, again, this was obviously the act of an insane person, but it comes down to, if you take away someone's ability to work and provide for themselves, they're going to fight you in some way, shape, or form to hold on to that. They will, every single time. Differently in the digital age, but they will every single time. All right. So, the question that we are asking is, this is how we got onto this freaking topic. The number of people that would dump their partner for a raise and the number of people that would give up their right to vote for a raise. Think about this for a second. Think about all the things that go into your relationship. Think about all the things that you feel as though your vote entitles to you, and then go, would you sell it? Because that's what we're talking about, really. Selling your right to be with the person that you love. Well, maybe you don't love them that much, and getting a raise for getting rid of them is just sort of a silver lining to that particular situation. But would you sell your right to vote? Would you sell your right to be with the person that you would love? Because a shockingly high number of us would.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away.
More AD on the radio.
So you and I will discuss what shockingly large percentage of Americans would be willing to sell their vote in just a little bit, or sell off their right to vote, rather. I guess it's not necessarily selling a vote, but it's selling off your right to vote. Right now, remember what we were talking about yesterday with Donald Trump Jr., Travis?
Oh, God. Trump gains?
Trump gains, bro. It's just... Donald Trump, in case you missed the show yesterday, in case you weren't privy to his Instagram feed, Donald Trump Jr., who just broke up with his wife. 40 years old, but just broke up, acted like, well, he went on Instagram and acted like a 16-year-old girl on MySpace would act in 2006 if they broke up with their significant other. What did he do? He posted pictures of his new haircut and a bunch of gym selfies saying that hashtag CrossFit was great when you hashtag go hard, hashtag no excuses, hashtag Trump gains, bro, or something of that nature. And it just made me go, could you just I don't expect you to be better, but could you just pretend to be better? Could you just, think this is what a normal person would do? And my every impulse is going, I'm not going to do that. Like your normal 40-year-old father of 5 or 6 or however many freaking kids he has at the moment would go, maybe I should do what's right for my family. And, being the son of the most public person on the face of the planet, I should try and, keep things on the DL and not do stuff that's going to be humiliating to my kids. Well, in this case, it's not just humiliating to his kids. It's humiliating to us on a global stage. Trump gains, bro. And he was like dripping with sweat. And it was not a good look.
I was thinking about this earlier. And you know who he reminds me of that I just never realized until the Trump gains pictures came out? The obnoxious brother, the D-bag brother from Step Brothers. Dale's brother. Do you know who I'm talking about, right?
I do know who you're talking about.
The one that Will Ferrell punches in the treehouse. He's like, I haven't had a carb in 15 years. Like the one whose wife is like.
Oh my God.
That's who he is. That's
Trump gains, bro.
That's who he is. Oh my God.
Oh man. And it made me go, what does the world think of Americans?
Because you travel internationally, you realize some people don't like Americans. I mean, the Canadians like us, and the Israelis like us. The Australians like Americans so much, it makes you question their judgment. But I get a kick out of what Europeans don't like about Americans. I was like, you Americans are dumb. You know nothing about Europe. It's not that we're dumb. We're just not that interested. Sorry, I don't want to learn more about your windmill country. He's going to get a wooden shoe in his ass. Obviously, I love traveling internationally. The only negative, too many foreigners, right? The weird thing is you travel around the world, and you realize pretty quickly people are the same wherever you go. Wherever you go, there are good people, and there are Russians. See, the reason that's funny is because we were all raised with this bigotry towards Russians. I have a friend, he was born in Russia. He moved here when he was 3, and I still think he might be a spy. The best is when you're visiting a country and someone thinks you're a native. I was waiting for a cab in Stockholm, and this Swedish lady turned to me, and she was like, Bjorn Borg, Bjorn Borg. That's not what she said. That's what I heard. But I knew in that moment that once this lady found out I was American, she was going to be disappointed. So I just decided that I was not going to speak any language she spoke. She was like, Bjorn Borg, Bjorn Borg. And I was like, ah, 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 ah. She was like, tu parlez-vous français? And I was like, ah, 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 ah. She was like, do you speak English? And I was like, that woman is now my wife. It's just like the Notebook. What?
It's amazing.
I do think that the vast majority of the rest of the world kind of finds us to be a little stupid, and you know what? Possibly with good reason as well. And I'll tell you why. It stuck with me forever. That I didn't speak a second language, because I went to this school where a lot of the kids were sort of like international. Half of us were Americans, the other half were international, and the international kids all spoke like a bunch of languages. I used to look after my parents' friend's kid. I would babysit sometimes. There was a brief period of my life where I was an above average babysitter, and this kid. He had a German dad and a Japanese mother, and he grew up back and forth between Germany and England. And his mother only spoke Japanese to him. His father only spoke German to him. And he had satellite television, so he would make him watch TV in German when they lived in England and make him watch TV in English when the kid lived in Germany. By the time he was 5, he spoke English, Japanese, and German fluently, which is like at 5 years old, you could go be a UN interpreter.
So
like
unfair.
it's insane. And but not that uncommon outside of America or outside of England. English speaking countries, and like the folks in England do a better job at speaking other languages. I think it's just the proximity to Europe. You're called upon to speak different languages more often. And I'll never forget like feeling intellectually dwarfed by all these kids that spoke all these different languages, because like I'm still struggling with one, but like when I went to Austria to visit my father a little while ago, get into the Uber, and the Uber driver is like, oh, he starts speaking Dutch to me. Everybody thinks I'm Swedish or Dutch. It must be the big blonde haystack. But like, he starts speaking Dutch to me. I'm like, I just don't speak Dutch. I'm sorry. I recognize it, but I don't speak it. And he was like, oh, German? He started speaking German. I was like, no. I was like, only English. And he was like, he was Middle Eastern, and he was like, no Farsi? I was like, no. Surprisingly, no Farsi. Like my Dutch, German, and like he tried Spanish. I was like a little bit of Spanish, so he started speaking Spanish to me. And like my Uber driver spoke 5 languages fluently and was apologizing to me that he didn't speak English better than he did. And I was just like, I feel like a total yeah, this is why they hate us. And you know what? I kind of sort of understand it.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KBRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is.
The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So how much would it cost for you to give up your right to vote, or maybe dump your partner? Here's the thing. Shockingly high number of Americans have a price for this stuff, and it can be bought. We'll get into that a little later on, but I want you to think about it. Would you be willing to give up your right to vote for a raise at work? We'll talk about it later. Right now, though, Travis, what is going on in the news? Let's take a look at the events of today.
Alec Baldwin turns 60 today.
Oh, yeah. And if you haven't gotten him anything yet, why are you such a rude, thoughtless little pig? It's a bad look calling your daughter that, obviously. And I know it happened like over a decade ago, and people, what's Alec Baldwin's kid's name, who's now like a grown adult and a supermodel, because she's also like Kim Basinger's daughter?
I can't remember. I can't remember the name.
I don't know. They like
terrible names.
I feel bad for her, because people, like, hey, what about that time a decade ago when your dad called you a rude, thoughtless little pig? Like, did you ever hear that voicemail?
I did hear the voicemail, and it's so funny because it just goes to prove people don't forget, I mean, I still think about it when I see the name or hear the name Alec Baldwin. That's the first thing that comes to my mind is, what a D-bag, because I remember that voicemail.
I guess he's getting like a television talk show. Like Alec Baldwin might be doing some sort of talk show is a thing. Huh. And I was like, do you not remember the whole thing when you were on MSNBC? What was it on MSNBC? He had something, I don't remember, but he had a political show for a little bit, and it got canceled almost immediately. I was like, oh, unsurprisingly, segments like the rude, thoughtless little pig of the week didn't test too well. Although, credit where credit is due, have you heard Alec Baldwin's podcast?
No, and podcasts are one of the things that I feel like I'm missing the bus on, because I hear like, who else is it? Does Joe Rogan have like a killer podcast that I'm missing out on?
Joe Rogan has
well?
one of the biggest podcasts. Alec Baldwin does one of Alec Baldwin, I think, after the whole rude, thoughtless little pig thing, I get the feeling that he lives life in fits and starts of humility and shame. Like, because Alec Baldwin is a remarkably successful guy. Like, he's a gazillionaire. He's been on all these really big shows. He's made movies. And if you talk to him about it, he'll tell you that he considers himself to be a failure. Just because he's not, he's not an A-list actor. He's not a guy getting paid $20 million a picture. He's not one of those folks. And so he'll call himself a failure. But it's interesting. One thing he happens to be really, really good at is interviewing folks. He's a really solid interviewer in a day and age where interviewing is a bit of a lost art. He's got a podcast series that's basically just interviews. I think it's called Here's the Thing or Just the Thing or something like that. I don't know. I do know this, though. His interview with Jerry Seinfeld is one of my favorite things that I've ever heard. It's really, really cool. But yes, anyways, happy birthday, Alec Baldwin. We think you're good at podcasting. And if you haven't gotten the man a gift yet, again, why are you such a rude, thoughtless little pig?
It's awesome. Kim and Kanye took their kids to the San Diego Zoo.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I wonder if Kim feels a bond with the animals because they too have sex in public. Hey, look, it's something with a big butt mating. Where have I seen this before? I don't know. Seems shockingly familiar.
So disgusting.
Go on.
Sylvester Stallone says Arnold Schwarzenegger will be back stronger than ever after heart surgery.
Right. At least that's what we think he said. I don't have my grunt to English dictionary handy. It was something along the lines of how it came out. What else?
Frank Stallone has apologized for attacking one of the Parkland shooting survivors on Twitter.
There are multiple Stallones in the news today. Is Sylvester?
Strange.
Nah, she can't be, because like Sylvester Stallone's 70, right? He's like in his 70s now. I think
is, I believe.
So his mom's got to have passed away. Could you look up and just Google it? Is Jackie Stallone still alive?
I will Google it. Let's see. That's a heck of a question. He's 71.
Uh-huh.
Let's see.
So she could still be alive, provided she hasn't made it to the red.
She could be.
But she's not?
Well, I think she is.
Oh, good for her.
And she's 96.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if Jackie Stallone made the news, it would be like the Stallone trifecta. But I was like, maybe Jackie Stallone's not making the news because she's no longer alive. But she's still out there and kicking at age 96. I wonder if she still wears those headbands. But wait, hold on. Frank Stallone, Sylvester Stallone's brother, why was he in the news again? What did he do? What did he apologize for?
He attacked one of the Parkland shooting survivors on Twitter. He was doing a little cyberbullying.
Oh, and then he apologized for doing it?
Yeah, he's sorry.
Yeah, well, I don't care. I'm still boycotting his work. In fact, tomorrow I'm marching right into Burger King and telling him I'd like someone else to take my order, please. That's cheap. Go on.
Black China reportedly got into a fight at Six Flags.
Well, hey, you try enjoying a roller coaster when one of Black China's boobs keeps whipping you in the face.
So troubling. I would be happy if we just never heard her name again, but it's not going to happen, I know. All right. Gwen Stefani is launching her own cosmetics line.
Oh, holla back, girl. Wait, she's her own cosmetics line?
Yes.
Oh, so, excellent news for women who want to look like a 48-year-old cheerleader. Bazinga. You've got it made. Although, I got to tell you, what was it? It's kind of etched into my memory. I think she was part of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade recently. Was she? Or am I making that up? I feel like she was. And I remember kind of going like, that was an auspicious moment, because that was the last time we saw Matt Lauer on TV before the world discovered he was a horrifying sex monster. And there he was, being a bastion of family values, presenting the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And I think Gwen Stefani was there. I think that's where I saw it. And I remember looking at it, and she was on a float. She was playing outdoors somewhere, and man, face, hair, like shellacked into place. Nothing moved on her. It was crazy. And I was just like, that whoever applies all that, really worth their weight in gold. So it totally makes sense that Gwen Stefani is launching her own cosmetics line. Very, very impressive stuff. Like I said, go on.
A former drummer for the band The Offspring, who is now a doctor, saved a juror at his own trial.
What is it about The Offspring? Like, why are all those guys so freaking smart? You know Dexter Holland, the lead singer from The Offspring? You know what he is besides a punk rock superstar that can fill stadiums full of adoring fans that are going to sing all the songs that he wrote back to him? Do you know what else he's got going on?
I can't remember, but I remember it's something impressive.
It's all impressive. He has, he's got his private pilot's license. He's a pilot. He runs marathons. He's a hot sauce entrepreneur. He's got his own hot sauce. It's called Gringo Bandito. I recently had it on a taco. It was delicious. And, he's a PhD in molecular biology, and he's currently studying the human genome, working on a cure for the HIV virus. Like, he's actually... It's insane. So unbelievably smart. And now the drummer, like the drummer, former drummer of The Offspring, who quit to go be a doctor, saved a juror at his own trial, which is, well, hey, pretty fly for a white guy. Go on.
Larry King says that the Second Amendment is poorly written.
Well, who better to judge than someone who actually watched it being written down? All your S's look like F's. Yep, that's a ye old-timey English joke. Go on.
Rob Gronkowski is pretty sure he'll return to the Patriots next season.
Right, especially after they agreed to pay him in the preferred manner. You know, raw beef, energy drinks, and Jägermeister.
Diarrhea deaths are on the rise in America.
It's not funny. People are dying.
I know, it's terrible. It's not about the outcome. It's about the cause.
It's just about the name. Diarrhea. It's like a great name for a metal band. Hello, Cleveland. We are Diarrhea Deaths.
Imagine having to try and explain that your child died of diarrhea.
Oh, don't talk about kids dying. That's terrible.
What? No, I don't mean child. I mean like a parent, like a 30 parent of like a third, like an adult child. Like I don't mean like children.
Just I mean, the fact that diarrhea deaths is a. So what, diarrhea deaths are on the rise in America?
Yes.
Right around the time Taco Bell sales have hit an all-time high. The plot thickens. All right.
I love Taco Bell.
Let's talk a little bit about how much you would be willing to give up for a couple extra bucks at work. Would you give up your right to vote for a raise, Travis?
That's a tough one. If I say yes, I'll be branded a terrible American. But in the same sense, I think probably a lot of people calling me a terrible American would probably agree that they would also give it up. It depends on how much money.
Well, it would be great to get a 10% raise tomorrow, but is it uproot your life, lose your teeth, and give up your rights as a citizen? Great. A new survey asked Americans what they'd be willing to give up in exchange for a 10% pay raise. Keep in mind that the average American salary is $52,000. So people would do this stuff for a $5,200 raise, or roughly $140 more per paycheck after taxes. 56% of us would work an extra 10 hours per week for life, and 50% would work 6-day weeks for the next year. I would not do that. 40% would give up all. That said, I work 7 days a week anyway, so what the hell am I talking about?
Right.
40% would give up all dental care, and 19% would go with no health insurance.
Ooh, I wouldn't do that. No.
35% of Americans, for a 10% raise, roughly $5,200 given the average American salary, $140 a paycheck. 35% of Americans would give up their right to vote for life, and 9% would give away their child's right to vote for life. 12% would break up with their significant other, and 5% would eat a Tide Pod. Here's the thing, though. If you're like me, if you're one of those, I mean, this is not nearly enough money to do anything, like $140 more a paycheck. No. But if it's a significant amount of money, I'm one of those guys that genuinely believes that the person who has held an elected office has never made a lick of freaking difference in my life whatsoever. Not once. Never. I believe that you are the captain of your own ship. You wake up in the morning and you decide how your day is going to go. You write your own story, whatever you want to apply to it. And so does the ability to vote for the person in the White House really make that much of a difference to your day? No, it does not. So I could kind of sympathize with people selling off their right to vote, but not for that little. No, don't ever do anything for $140 a month. That's your dignity we're talking about.
I just hate you so much.